first glimpse of the ring, as worn by William's mother, Princess Diana.
I would love to have met her, and she's obviously she's an inspirational woman to look up to, and very inspirational. So yeah, I do.
Royal tension blew up after Camilla's daughter straight up shocked everyone by stepping out wearing Princess Diana's legendary jewels. People said those pieces should have been Kate Middleton's alone, and when the photos hit, the palace gossip machine went nuclear with whispers of disrespect, petty rivalry, and a brewing power fight. But Kate didn't fold or throw a fit. Her calm, sharp reply was pure signal, maneuvers only insiders could read, and the whole world started asking, was this a bold challenge to her future role or the start of a royal showdown? There was no drama on the floor, no loud accusations, only Catherine's hard, still stare and the heavy, quiet weight William kept beside her like armour. The spark, a loss that left zero prints, a disappearance wrapped in shadow, and right in that dark spot stood Camilla, sliding into territory folks swore she had no business in. Legacies don't stay buried, they surface through dusty scans, forgotten files, and even the blunt honesty of a kid who can't lie. On one side was Catherine, a daughter-in-law who never met Diana but felt the burn of legacy and the duty to guard it. On the other was a woman who'd been pushed out of the spotlight, now stepping too deep into somebody else's history. She had no right to mess with what she didn't earn when justice doesn't shout and truth shows no weapon. Catherine knew loyalty had to be her shield. On June 18th, 2025, warm light poured through the heron wing stained glass at Kensington Palace, and the archive smelled like old oak and beeswax. A safe that held memories, not just jewellery. Each chest carried more than gems. They held pieces of a life that millions still lived with in their heads. Catherine walked between the boxes in a simple grey wool dress, hair tied back, no bling, no makeup, just a steady, serious vibe, because this was her first private inspection of the year. This wasn't a routine check. It was a promise to a woman she would never meet. She held a dark green leather ledger, the official list of sealed items kept by Queen Elizabeth II's orders after Diana died. The rule was strict, nothing touched or moved until 2043 when Princess Charlotte turns 18. A line carved in ink and honour. At first, everything matched the pages, every tag, every note, until two entries refused to line up. Catherine flipped the ledger over and over, hoping she was wrong, but she wasn't. Two priceless pieces had vanished. The Spencer pearl necklace, 1981, and the Qatar pearl earrings, 1986. Now that the truth had ripped the silence open, whose hands would get exposed next? It was a theft with no fingerprints. Catherine bolted to the marked compartments, her footsteps bouncing off the quiet archive floor, heartbeat in her ears as she lifted lid after lid of boxes that should have been full, empty, untouched, empty, no dust, no print, nothing to say anything had ever sat there. She ran her eyes and fingers over every inch. The locks were perfect, no tool marks, no scratches, palace-level security, motion sensors, heat detectors, biometric scans, zero alerts, no glitches, no midnight entries. No one had logged in, no one had cleared a removal, and still the jewels were gone. It felt erased, like they drifted out of time itself. A cold shiver ran down her spine, because this wasn't just about missing gems. It was about family memory and the thin, fragile threads tying Diana to her granddaughter. And watching those threads fray felt like losing Diana all over again. Heat rose in Catherine's chest, but she kept her cool like a guardian on duty. She couldn't act on grief alone. She had to move like a history keeper with nerves. Hands shaking, she grabbed her phone and called William. It rang twice before he picked up, voice calm but sharp. "Kate, what happened?" he asked. Her voice came tight. "William, you have to come to the heron wing. Your mother's necklace and earrings are gone." Silence pressed down the line, heavy as lead. When he finally spoke, his tone was steady and low, cut with a kind of pain she knew too well. "I'm coming. Don't tell anyone. We'll handle this ourselves." When the call ended, Catherine stood in the dim light as long shadows crept across marble floors, clutching the ledger like evidence and feeling the weight of a mystery bigger than missing jewels. Someone had taken Diana's legacy with a level of precision that looked impossible. Staff in the wings whispered, aides shuffled dossiers, and even newcomers felt the palace tense with quiet alarm. Hours later, deeper in Kensington, the warm daylight had been swapped for the harsh white glow of security monitors. The air turned tight, almost brittle, as Catherine sat at the long table with hands clasped, posture locked, eyes sharp and worried across from her. William leaned on the wall with sleeves rolled up, staring at the stream of data like a man who'd seen this pain before. He seemed steady, ready to move, but she knew the truth. This old wound still throbbed. "Run a full sweep," he ordered quietly. "Every log, every camera, every clearance, nothing stays unchecked," as the room buzzed with silent urgency. Catherine studied every face around her, wondering if one of them already knew more than they dared to admit. Who could breach a fortress without ever stepping inside it? And what else might they be quietly planning next? The name that finally shattered the silence lingered like smoke. Despite every member of the royal security team being vetted to perfection, Catherine carried one painful truth in her chest. Loyalty inside the palace was fragile, thin as glass. One wrong whisper, one quiet compromise, and even decades of loyal service could crumble. She glanced at William, their eyes connected for a single heartbeat. No words needed. Both understood instantly. This was no simple theft. This was betrayal, deep, deliberate, and aimed straight at Diana's legacy. Nearly an hour into the tense investigation, the head of security, a stern, silver-haired man with steel-rimmed glasses, lifted his eyes from the streaming data. "Your Highness," he said cautiously, "we've detected something irregular." William straightened sharply, pressing both palms against the polished table, posture tight with focus. "What kind of irregularity?" he asked. The technician expanded a segment of the access logs. On April 9th, 2025, someone entered the Heron Wing archives. His voice sharpened. The system recorded the visitor as Queen Camilla. A cold shiver slashed through Catherine. The name felt like ice in her veins. She turned toward William, seeing his jaw tighten, the shadow in his gaze deepen. "Reason for access?" William asked softly. The technician hesitated before opening another file. The visit was listed as an inspection for a proposed exhibition, yet no paperwork existed. Camilla brought no staff, no aides, no witnesses, and the biometric security system, designed so even senior royals couldn't bypass it, had been manually disabled. Catherine's brow knotted. Only someone with the highest clearance could override it. Only one person, Camilla. William remained silent, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. For a fleeting second, Catherine didn't see anger. She saw sorrow. Camilla wasn't just the queen consort. She was the woman tied forever to the grief of Diana's absence, a wound William never fully escaped. A storm rose inside Catherine. Camilla was cunning, unshakable, and ruthless enough to seize power when she wanted it. If she orchestrated this, it wasn't audacity. It was war. Catherine stepped beside William, laying a steady hand on his shoulder. "We'll uncover the truth," she said. "No matter what it takes." He squeezed her hand, voice low but fierce. "For my mother, and for Charlotte." The door closed behind them. Outside, the palace looked calm, but its shadowed corridors whispered another story. Camilla's name no longer sounded like a title. It sounded like a warning. If she truly crossed this line, would Catherine and William expose the truth before the palace itself changed forever? A pearl in the spotlight. On the evening of June 20th, 2025, Buckingham Palace shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers. The light scattered across gilded walls and marble floors, bathing everything in golden nostalgia. The Grand Hall swelled with diplomats, humanitarians, and dignitaries, gathering to honor 40 years since Princess Diana launched her groundbreaking landmine campaign. Admiration filled the air, mixed with soft sorrow, as though Diana's presence hovered in every gentle smile. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood beside William in a flowing sapphire silk gown, reflecting the iconic blue of Diana's engagement ring. Her smile was perfectly composed, her posture regal, but her eyes told a different story. A restless vigilance hid beneath their calm shine. 2 days had passed since the theft, yet the weight of secrecy still pressed heavily on her ribs. Camilla's name remained in her mind like a storm cloud refusing to move. William, polished in a tailored black suit, moved smoothly among the guests, but Catherine saw past the charm. Every glance they shared across the crowd carried unspoken messages, warnings, suspicions, possibilities. They had to wait until they gathered undeniable proof. Meanwhile, nearby, young Prince George clutched a glass of apple juice, his blonde hair catching the chandelier light. Curious and bright, he had inherited Diana's fascination with the grandmother he never met, through stories, photos, and bedtime tales that kept her spirit alive. Then Catherine felt a soft tug at her sleeve. George's voice rose, clear and innocent. "Mum, why is Laura wearing Grandma's earrings?" Time froze. Catherine's pulse hammered in her chest. Across the hall stood Laura Lopes, Camilla's stepdaughter, in a sleek black gown. On her ears gleamed the Qatar pearl earrings from 1986, the very pair missing from the heron wing. Conversation stumbled. The room held its breath. Catherine crouched, steadying a shaking hand on George's shoulder. "George," she whispered, voice trembling despite her calm mask. "What did you just say?" William's hand pressed against her back as his gaze hardened like stone. "Kate," he whispered, voice resolute. "We can't ignore this. Not anymore." Was this the moment the truth would finally break open? Or the start of a deeper, darker palace war? A royal confrontation brewed. Every instinct inside Catherine screamed for action. But she knew one wrong step could ignite a scandal powerful enough to swallow the entire monarchy. George, Charlotte, and Louis had to be protected, but the moment had already slipped from their control. With a slow breath, Catherine lifted her chin, her gaze locked onto Laura. Her voice came out calm, sharp, and cutting clean through the heavy silence. "Laura," she said evenly, "could you tell me where you got those earrings?" The question landed like a blade. Laura's fingers trembled as she brushed the pearls. I was told they came from an auction," she stammered. "My mother gave them to me." A cold chill slithered up Catherine's spine. Camilla's name rose once more in Catherine's mind, heavy, cold, and impossible to ignore. She met William's eyes, and in that silent exchange, the truth behind the heron wing theft no longer hid behind speculation, whispers, or endless spreadsheets. It was right there now, glaring, undeniable, gleaming beneath Buckingham Palace's blinding chandeliers. The grand ballroom, once alive with elegant conversation and the soft clinking of crystal, had fallen into a suffocating quiet. Diplomats, dignitaries, and senior courtiers watched with suspended breath as the confrontation unfolded, the air charged and electric, like the fragile stillness before a violent summer storm. Catherine's fingers ached where they gripped her lace gown. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Yet outwardly she remained composed, her expression carved from calm steel. Across from her, Laura stood pale and trembling, her fingers brushing the pearls as though their weight alone could expose everything. William's jaw clenched, the prince's voice dropping to a low but commanding register. "Fetch Mr. Harrison," he ordered, signalling for the palace's senior heritage appraiser, a man whose decades of service had safeguarded the crown's most priceless artifacts. Within half an hour, Mr. Harrison arrived, silver-haired and steady, carrying his case of micro-etching scanners. The guests instinctively shifted aside, as though the ballroom had transformed into a courtroom. Catherine stepped forward, her voice firm yet controlled. "Laura," she said, "please allow Mr. Harrison to examine them. This is necessary." Laura hesitated, her lips trembling, but one look at William silenced any protest. Slowly, with shaking fingers, she removed the earrings and handed them over. A thick stillness swallowed the room, the faint hum of the scanner, the soft clicking of buttons. Those were the only sounds as seconds stretched painfully long. Then the device displayed its verdict, and in that moment, the truth stood ready to unmask everything hidden in the shadows of the palace. Could this revelation expose the thief behind the stolen royal treasures, or was it merely the first step into a far deeper and darker web of palace intrigue? The Buckingham confrontation. Catherine unmasks the Queen. The match was absolute. The micro-etched serial code aligned perfectly with the Heron Wing archive records. These were beyond doubt Princess Diana's missing Qatar pearl earrings. A collective gasp rippled across the hall, spreading like a sharp gust of wind through the glittering crowd. Catherine felt the room pitch for a heartbeat, but she anchored herself with sheer will. Her gaze swept to Laura. "You said your mother gave them to you," Catherine said evenly. "Explain how she acquired them." Laura's hands shook visibly. I was told they came from an auction," she whispered. "My mother gave them to me. I swear I didn't know they belonged to Princess Diana." Every pair of eyes shifted toward Queen Camilla. Regal in deep crimson, she stepped forward, her usual commanding confidence fracturing at the edges. Her voice trembled as she attempted to seize control. "This is a misunderstanding," she insisted. "I had no idea these were Diana's. I purchased them from a reputable dealer and gifted them to Laura. Nothing more." Catherine felt fury crackle beneath her skin. But this was not the place to lose control. She leaned toward William, her voice barely above a whisper. "We move this privately. Not here. Not in front of all of them." William nodded, his stare fixed on Camilla. "Mr. Harrison," he said sharply, "return the earrings to the heron wing. Secure them immediately. No one is to touch them." Then he addressed the crowd with the quiet authority of a future king. "Ladies and gentlemen, our sincerest apologies. The gala will resume. This matter requires privacy. Thank you for your understanding." The hall obeyed, though whispers rippled like distant thunder. Laura fled in tears, leaving Camilla standing alone under the scrutiny of 100 shocked eyes. When the heavy doors closed behind them, Catherine breathed out slowly, her chest heavy with the enormity of what had unfolded. The earrings had resurfaced, yes, but this was only the beginning. In the glittering halls of Buckingham Palace, a queen had been publicly exposed. What began as a theft had erupted into open warfare within the royal household, and the nation was already picking sides. With the truth finally breaking the surface, how far would Camilla go to regain control? And how far would Catherine go to protect her family? Royal showdown, secrets, lies, and a stolen legacy. Every online post, every leaked whisper widened the growing rift between Camilla and public sentiment. Inside Clarence House, her once loyal aides began to retreat, a few quietly requesting transfers to Kensington Palace. One young staffer, shaken after attending a tense strategy meeting, confided to a colleague before resigning, "I can't stay. This isn't about image anymore. It's about tearing a family apart." Camilla felt her world shrinking. Late that evening, she summoned her advisors again, but the atmosphere was frigid, her authority fragile. Even her most faithful staff avoided her eyes. Finally, a senior strategist spoke, voice deep and wary. "Your Majesty, we can manage the press, but if the prince and princess uncover stronger evidence, this could become irreversible." Camilla's patience snapped. She slammed her palm on the table, the sound echoing sharply. "I do not need reminders of who they are," she thundered. "I have endured worse. I will not be destroyed." The words hung heavy in the room. She turned toward the window, London's lights shimmering like distant embers below, and for the first time, a flicker of fear crept into her chest. The gala disaster had not merely embarrassed the crown, it had delivered a warning to the very woman who had fought endlessly to wear it. Camilla could feel her control beginning to tremble, thin and unsteady, on June 24th, 2025. Deep within Buckingham Palace, a private chamber became the arena for a confrontation that would echo through royal history. The portraits of past monarchs looked down from the walls, their painted eyes seeming to judge silently as William, Catherine, and Camilla faced one another across a long, polished table surrounded by 6 senior advisors and legal counsel. William, in a charcoal suit, leaned forward with his palms pressed firmly against the oak, radiating icy restraint as he defended both his mother's memory and his daughter's inheritance. Catherine, in her tailored navy dress, carried an aura of calm strength, her eyes sharp with restrained fury. Camilla, draped in deep crimson, tried to maintain her royal composure, though her fingers dug subtly into the table's carved edge as the tension thickened to an almost physical force. When William finally broke the silence, his low, razor-sharp voice sliced through the chamber. "This is not private anymore," he said. "This is theft. You entered the heron wing, bypassed security, and removed artifacts belonging to my mother, items sealed for Charlotte." Camilla's chin lifted, defiant yet trembling. "I am the queen," she snapped, her voice brittle. "I have every right to review the family holdings. You accuse me without proof." Catherine's reply came quiet but resolute. "No accusation is needed, Your Majesty. Palace logs show you alone entered the archive on April 9th. The biometric system was disabled, and soon after, the earrings appeared on your daughter's ears." Camilla shot to her feet, fury and fear twisting together as she slammed her hands on the table, making glasses tremble. "I did not take them," she cried, her voice cracking. "I bought them at auction. I didn't know they belonged to Diana." But with the truth now uncovered, the question loomed. How far would Camilla go to protect herself? And could Catherine shield Diana's legacy from further betrayal? Royal authority challenged the suspension of Camilla's access. An older advisor cleared his throat, the sound unnervingly sharp in the heavy silence. His calm, deliberate tone only intensified the suffocating atmosphere, as though the chamber itself was listening. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "our investigation found no record of any auction involving the Qatar pearl earrings. The micro-engraved identification codes match Princess Diana's original registry perfectly. This cannot be dismissed as a clerical error or oversight." Camilla's eyes blazed as she spun toward him. "How dare you question me?" she snapped. "I have given my life to this family, while you all worship the memory of a woman long gone." Her words landed like venom. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, the tension thick as smoke. William's jaw tightened, his expression steel-hard. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, yet every syllable cut like a blade. "You speak of my mother like that," he said coldly. "You took what was hers, what belongs to my daughter, and you call it a mistake." Catherine placed a steadying hand on his arm, grounding him with a quiet strength. Turning to Camilla, she said, her voice calm but unwavering, "Power does not grant the right to rewrite the past. Charlotte deserves the legacy meant for her, not one tainted by greed or deception." Camilla looked around the table, searching desperately for support. None came. Gaze after gaze turned away from her. Finally, a seasoned female barrister spoke. "Your Majesty," she said gently but firmly, "based on the evidence, we recommend suspending your access to the royal archives until the investigation concludes." Camilla's defiance crumbled, replaced by a hollow exhaustion. "You may strip my authority," she rasped, "but you will never erase me." William rose slowly, his height casting a long, commanding shadow across the polished table. "We do not intend to erase you," he said, his voice steady. "We intend to protect my mother's legacy and ensure you never touch it again." Camilla turned sharply and strode toward the door, her heels striking the floor like distant thunder. When the chamber doors finally shut behind her, silence flooded the room. Beneath the table, William reached for Catherine's hand. They both knew this was a victory, but also just the opening move in a war far from finished. With Camilla barred from the archives, the question lingered. Could the monarchy heal, or was this merely the first tremor of a deeper, more destructive family battle? A legacy secured, Catherine's vow to protect Diana's heirlooms. There would be no public statement, no press release. Camilla's quiet exile unfolded like a velvet curtain drawn in the dead of night, unnoticed by the outside world. As her sleek black car pulled away from Clarence House, London thrived in its usual evening pulse. Crowds laughing under golden street lamps, taxis weaving through traffic, pedestrians hurrying along pavements, completely unaware that power had shifted behind the palace walls. Inside Buckingham and Kensington, however, whispers spread quickly. Some staff breathed visible relief, as though an unbearable tension had finally loosened. Others exchanged wary glances, uncertain how far this new order might extend. Camilla remained queen in title, but her throne had turned cold, hollow, stripped of influence, reduced to little more than the illusion of power. On July 1st, 2025, pale summer sunlight spilled across the newly fortified archive at Kensington Palace, a clean, modern fortress disguised as a room. Unlike the ornate heron wing, this archive was built for strength and precision. Reinforced steel walls surrounded the chamber, and biometric locks demanded both retinal and facial scans. Cameras monitored every corner, leaving no shadow unobserved. At the center stood Catherine, both architect and vigilant guardian. This was more than an archive. It was a sacred vow to Diana, to Charlotte, and to the quiet, insistent voice in her heart, demanding truth and protection. Gloved hands carefully placed two treasured relics into bulletproof glass. Diana's sapphire engagement ring, deep and luminous, and her delicate wedding bracelet, a chain that had shimmered the day she became Princess of Wales, now rested in secure display. Each bore microscopic codes marking them untouchable, impossible to move without leaving a trace. Only two people would ever open this archive: Catherine and the appointed guardian for Charlotte when she turned 18 in 2043. Her fingers brushed the sapphire, and a surge of tenderness and sorrow filled her eyes. Though she had never met Diana, Catherine felt her presence through William's stories, fragile letters, and fading photographs. A woman both luminous and achingly vulnerable. "I'll keep my promise," Catherine whispered, as if Diana stood beside her. "Charlotte will inherit what is rightfully hers." Footsteps approached. William entered, clad in deep blue mirroring the sapphire's hue. He studied the relics and turned to her with quiet admiration. "You've done it, Kate," he said. "My mother would have been thankful." Catherine smiled faintly. "We did it," she murmured. "For Charlotte, for your mother, for everything she stood for." William produced the Preservation of Bloodline Heirlooms Act, now finalised. Only Diana's biological descendants could claim her treasures. Camilla and her line were removed entirely. With a decisive signature, William sealed his mother's legacy. Beyond reach, Diana's treasures were finally safeguarded. Can anyone still challenge Catherine's guardianship? Or is the monarchy's future now firmly in her hands? The crimson light of sunset bathed Buckingham Palace, gilding its domes and spires in molten gold. Inside a modest office above the courtyard, the air was sharp and cold. William sat behind an aged oak desk, the scent of waxed wood and parchment lingering. A freshly drafted decree, black ink crisp against white, bore the royal seal declaring solemn authority. By the window, Catherine stood with quiet grace, her gaze fixed on the gardens below. Her hands were tightly clasped, knuckles white, but her silence was not fear, it was resolve. Together, they had endured sleepless nights, faced hard truths, and confronted challenges that would echo through the monarchy for years. Camilla's fury during the council meeting lingered in William's mind, sharp and desperate, yet it had failed to conceal the evidence or shake the advisor's conviction. William picked up the pen, hand steady, the nib scratching decisively across the page. Each word was formal, precise, and merciless. All of Queen Camilla's privileges over royal heritage were rescinded. She was barred from representing the crown in any events tied to Diana, her authority stripped completely. Within the Royal Planning Council, suspended pending review, each sentence severed decades of ambition and influence at Clarence House. Consequences arrived swiftly. A nervous aide presented a sealed envelope. Camilla broke the wax seal, eyes scanning every word. Revocation of clearance, suspension of duties, and instructions to withdraw from public life. The grandeur she had once commanded mocked her. Now, the power she had claimed so fiercely had vanished. Outside, London thrummed with oblivious normal life. Camilla remained queen in title, yet exiled within her own reign. Meanwhile, Catherine, hailed as the guardian of Diana's legacy, often walked Kensington Gardens with Charlotte. The little girl clutched a daisy, dreaming aloud, while Catherine's calm smile reflected a vow kept. One day, Charlotte would inherit not just jewels, but endurance, love, and her grandmother's enduring spirit. Under the crimson dusk, the palace glowed not as a monument of marble, but of remembrance. Diana's light lived on, safeguarded by William and Catherine. So, what's your take on this intense royal saga? A story of Diana's legacy, loyalty, and betrayal, one that shook the monarchy to its core. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more dramatic royal moments.